It's Tabadromo, and I'm here with my friend Brian Ryder, who I met, God, probably a decade ago now, almost.
Oh, it's what's at least like 2013, I think. About eight
Eight
years ago.
years. Yeah. Hey, welcome. Great to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too. We met up in La Jolla. I had a girlfriend at the time. Now a wife and two kids with that girlfriend. So life's changed a little bit. So
Just a little. So we're going to talk about messaging today, aren't we?
yeah. We're gonna go over one of my favorite. I think it's just so relevant today. With I was laughing, looking at your profile of like how are those templates doing for you? I think it's just so relevant in today's world where everybody's trying to automate things, and it'd be great, but you start going, hey, templates don't work very well. You got to actually figure out a couple things in marketing and a couple things in your business. Otherwise, it doesn't work very well.
I was on some support site this morning trying to get support through the chatbot, and it kept taking me through this loop. And it was like, just give me a human being, please.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Or yeah, you're trying to get something done, and nothing. And you go through automation. I had that with my phone once, and finally I was just like, can I cancel? I texted another company, and they were like just chatting with me, and I was like, yeah, it's interesting. We have this world of automation, and it sounds good, but is it helping? I mean, it helps save some time, but you can't just these dreams of doing nothing in your business isn't really reality. So
Yeah, I know you've been doing a lot of LinkedIn messaging for years now.
Yeah, it's funny. I've probably done LinkedIn, and we still use it for our clients and for ourselves. But we just got, it works so well if you do it right that, most people are like, where have you been for, a year? You haven't been on any podcasts, you haven't done anything, you haven't even marketed. And I said, well, like all of our businesses are going so well, I kind of like disappearing, from it. And, our corporate companies just use the strategies that we have, and that's driving business. So it's not done by me, but yeah, I mean, LinkedIn, I feel like LinkedIn is one of those things that you're sold this promise that you buy this package and you got these templates and just everything will be right. And that's really good for the person selling it, but also, yeah, you just got to figure out good messaging and understand your audience. And it works. I actually got this is from one of my buddies, Travis Sego. And we were talking about this, the whole title of how idiots get rich. And what they do to get rich is instead of going, we have a tendency to overthink it and try to edit everything and do that. Well, he's like, well, how idiots get rich is they get one good message and they say the same thing over and over and over until the wheels fall off, and they don't think about it. That's all they do. And then they figure out, if you get that right, and then obviously you solve one problem, your customers will have another problem, and you solve that. And he's like, you just watch businesses out there. And the joke and the thing why we say idiots is because the problem is we overthink that it has to be more complex than just understand one problem, solve it.
Right. Yeah, I love Travis's approach. He's got it dialed in.
Dude, he's insane. I mean, I've worked with him. He's insanely intelligent on the marketing process, and we've added things in, and we talk back and forth. But yeah. I mean, he's another one. If you know your audience, you don't see much from him. It's not like he's in every Facebook ad out there, or you're getting 26 emails a day, like some other people. I've seen some people I'm emailing like hourly these days. It's interesting.
God.
No mentions of names here, but yeah, you just don't see him. But I mean, just knowing him, he's 10 times more successful than most business owners out there that are doing the opposite thing.
I like what you're saying about the audiences. You got to know your audience, like what their big issue is right now. Because if you're just blasting templates and generic messages, it's like robocalling. Well, you just wait for someone to answer the phone.
It is legitimately like robocalling, And it's like marketers, they always say marketers ruin everything. I forgot who said that, maybe Seth Godin. And it's what happens is we figure out, oh, LinkedIn, this platform, well, we figure out it works. And then people go, well, we'll just do more of it and templatize it. And maybe this will make it better. And it typically never works, but it's an interesting approach. It'll work short term. It's like anything. It works short term, but over a couple months when people get tired of spam, it gets harder. And that's just the life cycle of, I think what you see out there is a lot of people are buying courses, a different strategy, and it works. But the more people that do the same strategy without figuring out the messaging, it's not going to work.
Right. So you're talking messaging. You're not talking just like an email or a LinkedIn message. You're talking about your overall message.
Absolutely. I mean, you look at what we're, absolutely is, I think that's what everybody gets wrong about it is like, you're a LinkedIn expert. You're very good on the platform, but overall, like if you don't have a good message and it's not relevant to your audience, like right now, people are going to tune out. It's simple. It's so simple. It's just not easy to do because we're taught, we don't have very good examples typically. Because 70 other percent of people are in this, let's do more and like be scarce or make outlandish promises. I think that's the other problem I see in the market today is people feel like they have to make like insanely outlandish promises. Like I'll make you $1 million with no work and you don't even have to lift your finger up. And that'll get attention. But without, who's going to buy that?
Yeah.
And who's going to be able to actually pull that off? Like, definitely.
I got an email yesterday and the subject line was how to send 200 plus LinkedIn invitations a day.
That's interesting. That should be how to get your account shut down. Actually,
exactly.
I mean, you send much more than 100. You send much more than 100. I think 150 cap. Otherwise, you're going to get your account shut down.
Yeah. So what makes a good message? What makes a good message?
I always say, this whole simplicity on a great message is if you got to know the audience, like, and we talk about this stuff, and this is the challenge is you hear, well, it's all about your audience and 90% about your, 90% of your marketing is about your audience and your offer. And then 10% maybe all this other marketing stuff we like to throw in. A really good message focuses on a specific niche, obviously of people, but it's focused on a specific pain point. Just if we take your marketing message, it's like you are absolutely focused on a particular pain point. And I could tell, and what's interesting as a marketer, I could look at who you're going after. And you're going after these companies that have bought these programs and tried the templated approach, or these other people that they've already bought something else and it's not working for them. Well, that's a great, you start looking at like destructing or breaking this down is one, who's the audience? It's people that already bought something or have some knowledge. So obviously they're using LinkedIn, they're using LinkedIn and they have a specific pain point. Well, they've learned automation. Maybe they got their account shut down, but they're sending out hundreds and hundreds of messages a day with no traction. Well, you go, okay, who's doing that? Those are typically sales-oriented people. Sales-oriented people who now we've qualified them on a specific problem. That's a good, one, it's you hit the audience and a relevant message.
Right.
And that's really what it comes down to is who's the audience, what's the pain point, and if I match those two up, that's 90%. That's 90% of getting there. Maybe more. I mean, it's if you got that right. And I always tell people this. Well, if you get that right, you could just say the same thing over and over again, and you're going to win.
Right.
And that's like that frequency of repetitiveness. But that's what comes into a good message. This has been researched. You look at all marketing information, and this isn't good for copywriters. This isn't good for everybody else trying to sell a ton of marketing information. Now, if you're selling results, it's great. But you see, and research shows that 50% of any messaging that's sent out is the list. The list, and then 30 to 40% is the specific pain point. around the offer.
Right. Yeah, like I put that out there about you've tried the templates, it hasn't worked for you. So you have to have a different solution of this is the way I do it.
Yeah, and the challenge is now the interesting thing, no one could rip it off because it's like you're not telling them how you do it, and this is which is good. But what happens is like people are gonna like you're like, yeah, I have that problem. How do you help me, Ted? Like it's a very like, okay, I'm using LinkedIn. What's first qualifier? What's the second one? Okay, I'm gonna reach out. Reach out, and then you solve problems. And if you get that right, in general, if you get that right, you have to do so much less of all the other busy work marketing to grow it. I mean, we have a couple businesses, 7 figures. We have one that may reach 8 figures this year. And obviously we run some paid traffic to it, but we do that and we email. It's super simple. We do some a little bit of like marketing and messaging out from a social media assistant, but primarily it's why does it work? Because it's got that audience lined up and it's got that problem, and then we don't have to do a lot of marketing. That's actually I think it's an inverse. You kind of look at this is in the marketplace now, people think being loud is going to win, and we've seen that. We've seen the alpha. Well, the problem is that will win for some people. It might not get you the right customers, but that's working for some large companies. It doesn't work as well for if you're a smaller company, if you're sub $10 million, and you don't have the resources just to pound that message out. Well, you got to be better, and you got to be able to differentiate. Differentiate, and then 2, communicate that in a couple different ways. But it's the same message over and over.
Right. And
it's never anything more than that. But what happens is you just watch, the law of mediocrity is everybody buys all the other things that actually won't make a difference.
Right.
So
yeah, don't follow the herd. Dang.
Well, yeah, and I heard Perry Marshall was said that the other day is like one of his qualifiers now, and I think this is really important to talk about is that if you have not failed, if you've not tried all those easy things and ran your head into the wall, like get away from me. Like you're not going to like my stuff. You're not going to resonate with this. Go buy from somebody else that's going to cause some pain and then come back to me. And I'm like, it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant in the process, but he knows who his customer is and he knows who he can help.
Right.
And you don't see, Perry's super successful. And if you watch Winslet, you look, and this is kind of an example of, he's not sitting out there. You don't see a ton of ads out there. You see a little bit, but comparatively to, some of the other people in the industry, it's like 10-1. But who's more successful? Who has a better business? We're not even going to argue that. But that's really where the messaging comes in.
Yeah, Perry's reached that thought leader level of where he doesn't have to advertise. People know him.
Yep. Yeah, and he knows, if you even look at when he does advertise, he knows exactly who he wants.
Right.
He's it's that expertise and the simplicity of it that I think that's what's hard in messaging is so much what we initially lead with is how we frame our conversation in the process. And if you frame it the right way, well, your sales cycle is shorter. If you don't, if you just shoot in the bucket, what everybody does is I can help everybody. And I talk all the, well, it's hard to get the exact person that's an easy client to work with and that you're going to be able to grow with. Because ultimately that's where it's at. And, you watch Perry, you watch everybody else is, what do we figure out is, well, our ongoing marketing is obviously get people results. And so we need so few clients to actually get to where we want to go. We don't even have our front end marketing is very little. But I always tell people, don't mistake that for success. That's actually way more successful than, things, going the other way around.
And it takes years to dial in the messaging sometimes, but you also have to keep evolving.
That's really what, when we're
different today.
Yeah. And that's what's hard now is, and this really goes into template messages is it's change unless you have the toolkit and, the toolkit to understand how your market's changing. The problem is you could buy template. We could write and look at this. This is a really good example. You and I could say, hey, this is working right now, and put it in a template approach and sell it. And yeah, it'd be great. And in 30 days, is it still working? Well, the success cycles, work. It's less and less and less, depending on the competitiveness. But in 6 months, the strategy is probably, it's going to be irrelevant, simply because what we go back to is your audience is constantly evolving. They're seeing an incredible amount of sales copy and messaging out there. So if you don't evolve, then it's not going to work. And I think that's what happens is if you don't have the best toolkit, I think the tool to learn is, okay, as the market moves, how can I evolve? And if you understand those elements, well, you could care less what happens, because then you can just evolve. I always say my life's pretty, my stress level once I figured this out, I used to be super stressed. Oh, how do I keep up this business? Well, the market's going to change, and whatever it does, I have this tool in my tool belt. I'm gonna be able to solve the problem.
Right. Yeah. And things, I'm starting to see messages I used to send like 8 to 10 years ago on LinkedIn, and people are using that approach like, well, that worked 8 or 10 years ago, but the market is smarter now. They figured out what that stuff. So you have to keep evolving your messaging.
Did somebody rip off and pirate one of your courses and then just sell it back? That's an interesting thing about what if you've been in this game a while, what you're seeing too is you're now seeing what you put out 7 years ago. Somebody buys it, tries to repeat it, and it's been long enough that people start buying it again, and you're like, oh, this is really, really interesting.
Yeah, because when you evolve and your messaging shows that you're current and you know what's happening in the marketplace right now, as opposed to just these general messages. Hey, we've got something in common. Let's connect and do a joint venture. I get those messages on LinkedIn.
It's funny. I was, I hardly read. I hardly read though. Like I just see the incoming mess in my app. Because it's never, and I would buy. What's interesting is, I'm never opposed of getting help, but like when somebody isn't relevant up front, I'm like, this isn't, well, let's connect. And then, 7 days later, I'm like, sometimes I do it as a joke. Is it 5 or 7 days later that they set their pitch, or is it just automatic, like 15 seconds after you connect? And then you're like, okay, which one is it? Like, but that's what we've been, that's what's been taught, because ultimately in the beginning it works because people are like, yeah, they've never seen it.
Yeah. No, there's people that start the pitch and the invitation to connect now.
Yep. So,
I want to connect with you.
Yeah. The only time I've ever seen, and we get into nuances of expertise. The only time I've ever seen that work, it isn't pitching, but it's saying, hey, this is how I can help you. This is the problem I solve. Well, obviously we're getting into nuancing of messages. That works. But if you just straight pitch somebody and you're that, you're that arrogant to think that like you're that good, you get humbled a little bit.
Yeah. So, if you just mention like, this is what I do, this is who I help, that's okay. But when it goes on, you have to scroll 3 or 4 times to read the entire message. It's like, oh my God.
They limited those first contact messages. What is it? 300 characters now?
I still get some long ones now.
How do they do that? That's who knows, but exactly the same thing. And then where somebody would be far better going, okay, this is how I can help you. And then, following up 10 times and like, that's a whole nother story of like following up 10 times, saying this, staying on point, and just continue demonstrating that you can solve the problem. So few people, we work with a lot, we don't really, I'm sure no one sees the advertising because we just had our clients and we grow through referrals still with messaging. That's that same thing is we just follow up with people. And, we work with, with some Lean Six Sigma consultants, and it's just consistent follow-up and people win in that market. You start seeing, it's consulting contracts, so they're very, very high margin. And, there's a couple companies they're doing, they can do 7 figures, just a good messaging campaign or a consultant making, $300,000-$400,000 just getting good at this. And it's way more predictable. It's way more predictable than trying every other approach. And I can't really share the figures, but there's some definitely people doing 7+ figures through just good, simple messaging, nothing spammy.
Yeah. And follow up with people. And I'm reaching out to people I worked with 10 years ago, and they're like, oh, I need your help. You're back on their radar.
Yeah. And I think that's the hard, when we're looking at messaging, is it's like a relationship is, it's like, okay, well, sometimes people, and it's all about timing. I think that's the other insight to really get good at marketing is like how much marketing is about timing. It's like, hey, we could help, even though you can help somebody until the timing's right. It's not going to work. And the hardest thing the thing about following up with them is you are literally just keep building the relationship until the timing's right. And is it 30 days? Some people are, you look at different industries, some are 180 days. We have a client that typically their sales cycle is about 270 days. Which that's a long time to message out knowing, and some people are shorter than that. But it's typically that consistent follow-up and then okay, timing, they're ready to go. And it varies, but in general, if you think somebody's out researching the problem, well, they're probably not ready to pull the trigger. I was getting ready. First time, actually, funny enough, 10 years, I bought a car. Had a car, we sold them. We leased a car, but I'm buying a car. Well, it was like, my sales side, my process was doing research, driving, things along those lines. And it's funny because, who followed up, who actually had a good, and it was very, very interesting. I was like, and even if the car industry isn't doing very good at this, I'm sure, you just know from history where you make everybody so much money is not just, hey, you get your message right, and then you understand the elements and you keep doing it, and then at some point the timing is right, or they say, hey, I'm not interested, and either way is fine. But in the meantime, how can you help them and stay entertaining where they keep reading your stuff enough, and then when the timing's right, it's great. And the companies that, my experience is, the companies that figure that out, you don't see Ted Padromo. I don't see feeds, ads 100 times. It's like, hey, you're building up because you have that good organic, and you're good at organic and nurturing your list. It works.
Yeah. Yeah. So I get those messages from people. You connect, you get 3 or 4 messages consecutively. It's like, hey, the time's not right. But if you send a message every 3 or 6 months, maybe the time's right a year from now or 2 years from now. But if
so that company
out, you're like, oh, I'm done. You didn't buy
that
from me in the first week.
is around 7 messages, the 270. And obviously they have some phone. It's not just LinkedIn. They have some email. They're not just LinkedIn in their email, and they're calling, they're following up. And people will show some interest early on, but they're in that 7 to 13 range of touches before they really get a good prospect and close a deal. Well, yeah. I know, like, those courses teach you 3 messages, and then like the world's ending, at the end of it, that's really what you do. And it's just not, you're not going to win long-term. That can work short-term if, but you're not, the difference is like, kind of going back to the example is I haven't been marketing, but I'm still getting enough organically just because I'll email out once in a while, and I'm talking to people, about this. And it's, if you ever notice, like, I think we did one of these 2 years ago. It's the same thing. I'm still talking about the same thing, to make things work. And, maybe, 20 years from now, I'll be talking about like, hey, this is actually how you make it work. Right. The messaging, who knows what platform it'll be. You might have to have 50 touches, who knows, but the same core principles it's never changed. Right.
Exactly. It's like, I've been on email lists for years and never bought. And then all of a sudden, after maybe 5 years, I bought something.
Yep. And most people just don't think of, they're like, oh, I haven't made dollars yet. And I always give my clients credit, because half of them, you could even tell people it's going to be taking that long. But the people that have done a good job and stick with it, in year 2, the ROI of this, like being consistent for this, a couple of these companies in year 2 is like, it's laughable. Like, you're starting to see 30 to 30 to 1 returns on what they're paying. And it's laughable. But that's the power of consistency.
Yeah, that's great. Oh, it's great catching up with you, Brian. How can people get in touch with you?
Yeah. Great. Definitely fun to share. And we always laugh. And it's like, our lives are both pretty simple. We're not stressed out. We're like, okay, what problems in the market do I want to solve that? Do those people motivate me? Okay, great.
Yep. It's cool.
All right. Well, good catching up.
Yeah. What's your website? People
it is bdgrowthpartners.com. The best thing to do, bdgrowthpartners.com. Best thing to do is reach out to me and in the message say, hey, I saw you here. I saw you here. I'd love to hear. Like, that's the best way, because the website works. I think we updated. Literally, I'm joking. I'm not joking. I think we updated like 3 or 4 years ago. But yeah, that's just what happens.
Vinay says your smile is innocent.
There you go. I mean, it's supposed to be this fun. I mean, you really think about it. We travel. We're up to 75 countries. My little girl's at 46. We're itching to get some more. But it's supposed to be that simple and fun. We're just, we're taught that it's anything but.
Exactly.
It takes some time to dial in the message. I always tell people that is, if you can run your head against the wall in the beginning to get that right, then everything else is pretty easy. But if you do everything else and don't get that right, you just burn so much energy, and it kind of gives, I think at that point, the big thing just to close with is like, business will give you a bad taste, because one, even when you get clients, you don't love them. Where, the right message and the people you want to help it's your dream clients that you're like, cool, I would go to the bar and hang out with them. I'd have a beer with them. I don't drink that much beer, it'd be wine. But I enjoy them. And that's kind of the point of marketing, is how do you get the people that you really like to hang out with?
That's the whole point of business. You want to work with people you like.
Yeah, that's what I think's missing is we get so stressed about revenue versus like, well, if my messaging gets the exact people I want to hang out with, like Fred's got a little sniffle. I already had Corona or COVID. Got through that one about a month ago, actually.
Wow.
But we forget that's what you should try to do with your message, is like, just like you're doing, like people should hey, if you're struggling with that, well, it's an easy fix for you. It's like you do that in your sleep. So
yeah, you built your business around your lifestyle, and you spent how many months or years traveling the world, living all over the world?
Yeah, a lot. And it's like, and I think that's where, I was, and what'll happen, this would be interesting here, is people will watch this, and they'll come back and they'll be like, oh, you're a jerk, or get a little bit upset, and it's like, you don't mean it arrogantly. You just mean that, like, if you get this right and you simplify it and you communicate, life is so much easier, because you don't have the drama with, like, the drama with clients can be really hard, definitely. But you just, it's like you're hanging out with your friends.
Right. Exactly. That's the way it should be.
Yeah. And it's like you hang out, like we've known each other for 8 years, 8-ish years. And, I know people, I have friends in this industry that have been, just keep up with them. And we go through loops, but it's like they're your family.
Right. Exactly. Cool. Well, it was great talking to you, Brian.
Cool. Sorry, I kept dragging on there.
No, that's cool. That's fine. I love it. Love catching up with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's bdgrowthpartners.com.
Yep. Or just send, or type in Brian Ryder. You have and on LinkedIn, and say hi.
Sounds cool.
All right.
I'll see ya.
All right. See ya.